It was a perfect shape. It was shaped sort of well, like a pearl with a tail. And I watched this thing, and suddenly it disappeared. And I thought, well, am I seeing things? I'd had a very grueling flight. I'd been waiting for, I had engine trouble, and I'd been waiting for hours, expecting to go into the sea, you know. However, suddenly this thing reappeared, coming towards me. And I thought, well, I'm not going to let it go this time. And I kept my look fixed on it, and it approaching fairly fast, and then suddenly, gradually rather, it began to thin out, and it vanished in front of me, and before my eyes. It became a sort of ghost. I could see the water, the waves of the sea through it for one instant, and then it vanished.
Here we've seen something, I've seen something, hundreds of pilots have seen something in the skies. We have dutifully reported these things. And we have to have 15 million witnesses before anybody's going to look into the problem seriously? Why, this is utterly fantastic. This is more fantastic than flying saucers or people from Venus or anything, as far as I'm concerned.
July the 24th, 1948, two experienced commercial pilots, Clarence Childs and John Whitehead, were flying at night over Alabama when they encountered what they described as a cigar-shaped object, perhaps 100 feet long, flying faster than any aircraft they had ever seen. It had, they said, 2 rows of windows, and they could see lights inside, and orange-red flames shooting out of the tail. Air Force investigators couldn't explain it.
It could not possibly fly unless it had an engine in it that was beyond anything anybody on Earth could make.
The Air Force investigators trusted the testimony of these experienced pilots and were forced to consider the incredible.
March the 12th, 1977. I was flying a trip from San Francisco to Boston, non-stop in a DC-10.
It was an Airbus 320, and we had 24 passengers on board with very good condition. We were at 39,000 feet.
We were just north of Dallas-Fort Worth. It was a beautiful, clear night.
Out of nowhere, some lights appeared. Looking over to the left of me, just to the north of me,
I noticed a red light of some kind to the far, the distance off our port side, our right side.
And Larry says, well, keep an eye on it. He says, well, now it's coming at us.
And they began a turn from pointing directly at us in an echelon sort of a turn away.
It was not a plane, it was not a weather balloon. It was huge, absolutely huge. It was dark red color. And so this object began to become transparent and it disappeared. It was absolutely crazy. Crazy.
It just was gliding through the sky so quietly, and as it did so, it blotted out the stars behind it. And it just reminded me of a submarine in the depths when it's quiet and just kind of motoring right on through, you know.
There were no wings, there were no windows, and it was cigar-shaped.
I saw what I saw. And this thing was not from here.
I watched this big, gigantic light go out behind our left wingtip, and then as the turn progressed, it disappeared in the distance off to the back at a very high rate of speed. I've flown all the jets. I flew in the war. I flew B-17s in the war. Everything. I've got over 30,000 hours of flight time and never had a sighting as that one. So it was once in a lifetime.
That it pulled up alongside my left wing. It was a bullet shape, rounded at the front, that widened out and then tapered to a point at the end. And it made an instantaneous 90-degree right angle turn, and it went vertical until it went up out of sight. And I sat there looking at it, and I didn't know what to think.
5 minutes later, Shannon saw the object again, and it repeated the same pattern. Only this time, 2 pilots flying in the opposite direction also saw the UFO.
I have to, to the best of my knowledge, rule out any kind of meteor or shooting star, because I don't know if any meteor that will come alongside, pace you, and then take off forward and go vertical. Okay? Any kind of spacecraft or military aircraft, technically that was defying all physical laws by making an instantaneous 90-degree turn. According to laws of physics, that can't be done.
It's a very special experience for me.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure.
This is the amazing story of Carlos de los Santos. From his testimony, Carlos reported seeing 2 grey objects about 4 meters in diameter, each with a small cabin, like a cockpit or a windshield.
¿Qué dices? ¿Qué es esto?
A third object appeared in front of the plane, heading straight for Carlos.
Me espanté muchísimo. En mí, en mi familia, en mis padres. Yo traté de virar. Allí fue cuando me di cuenta que tuve un completo control de la aeronave.
Carlos immediately started to lower his altitude as he began to approach Mexico City Airport.
Amazingly, Diaz remembers seeing another blip appear on his radar, an object flying near Carlos's plane, just as Carlos reported.
Era un eco de algún objeto que estaba volando en esa área. De eso no cabía la menor duda, porque cuando nos llamó más la atención y nos desconcertó fue cuando inició un viraje de 270 grados por la izquierda en un radio de 3 a 4 millas.
If Diaz's recollection is correct, this is an exceptional maneuver for any aircraft.
Lo cual nunca antes habíamos visto ni el controlador de aproximación ni yo.
Diaz and the air traffic controllers could only come to one conclusion.
Supusimos que era el objeto no identificado que él estaba reportando. En ese momento empezamos a comentar y a pensar que parecía que sí era cierto.
This is important testimony, and to me it's particularly important because it's confirmation of a physical nature. It's radar confirmation. And so it provides independent support for Carlos's story.
At 35,000 feet, Goodnow and his pilot are heading right toward the object.
What was the distance between you and that object that you saw?
Within 20 miles.
Okay. So close enough to really get a
close enough that
look.
we were getting nervous.
Okay. I imagine flying at the speed you guys fly, 20 miles comes up pretty quick.
It does.
Were any reports filed?
I did file something, never heard back. And I hear from other pilots that did the same thing, that's kind of a common theme. When you make these calls or you file these reports, there are never follow-ups.
Any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object. It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
UFO historian David Clark showed me the radar tracks of another sighting in 1991. The one we've highlighted was the unexplained object seen by an Alitalia pilot approaching Heathrow.
The pilot and the co-pilot saw this object like what they described as a cruise missile-shaped object zooming across in front of the cockpit, and the pilot immediately shouted out, look out," to his companion.
Captain Terauchi describes the main craft as being twice the size of an American aircraft carrier.
Deviate from object, equating 240. Spinner 1628 Heavy, deviation is approved as necessary for traffic. It's quite a big, like a formation. Spinner 1628, sir, do you still have the traffic? Disappear, Spinner 1628. Spinner 1628, I understand you do not see the traffic any longer? Okay.
Moments later, an urgent message comes in from Elmendorf Air Force Base. The unidentified object now appears on their radar.
Yeah, this 1-2 again. We have confirmed there is a flight size of 2 around your 1550 squawk. One primary return only. Okay, where is he following him? It looks like he is, yes.
777. Ja. Hoe lang ben je al piloot?
31 jaar.
31 jaar.
Ja.
En jij hebt iets waargenomen enige tijd geleden, volgens mij. Ja. Hoe lang is dat geleden?
Ja, dat is heel lang geleden. Dat is 25 jaar geleden. Maar ik weet het nog als de dag van gisteren. Omdat het zoiets bijzonders was dat je dat nooit meer vergeet. En ik zie opeens vanuit mijn rechter ooghoek zie ik een blauwe lichtflits voorbij komen. Of flits, ja, iets onverklaarbaars. De grootte van misschien wel de maan of iets kleiner. Maar het haalde ons heel snel in. Een blauw fel licht. En het bijzondere daaraan was ook dat, kijk, wij vliegen met 800-900 km per uur door de lucht. Maar dit ging echt 2-3 keer zo hard. En dan zou je nog kunnen zeggen dat is een straaljager. Maar, of de uitlaat van een straaljager, dat geeft ook vaak een blauw licht. Maar dit stopte. Van de een op het andere moment. Ik kan ook niet zeggen hoe groot het in werkelijkheid is geweest. Want ja, in het donker afstand is heel moeilijk in te schatten. Ik weet het niet. Ik weet het was iets hoger vlogen dan wij. Wij vlogen toen denk ik op 34.000 voet. Dus zeg maar 10-11 kilometer hoogte. En dit zat misschien op 14-15 kilometer hoogte, denk ik, schat ik. Maar Het meest bizarre was dat het met een rotvaart voorbij kwam en stil stond. Vervolgens een paar seconden stil bleef staan. Toen van rechts naar links vloog. Weer stil bleef staan een paar seconden. En vervolgens links weg naar achter wegschoot. Verder konden we natuurlijk niet meer zien. Nou ja, wij waren met z'n tweeën echt flabbergasted, letterlijk. En sprakeloos. En ik had het idee van, ik pak de radio. We hebben een interpilot frequency in de lucht. Waar je binnen een aantal kilometers met elkaar kan praten. Vliegers onderling, vliegtuigen onderling. Dus ik vroeg over de frequentie, anyone saw that? The blue light. En ik kreeg direct de respons, yes, I saw that too. What was that? En, nou ja, hetzelfde hadden wij ook. En terwijl ik het zeg, krijg ik wel weer kippenvel over mijn huid. Omdat ik gewoon dat dan weer herleef als het ware. Het is gewoon geen, ik ben niet gek. En voor mij was het echt. En wat het was, ik kan het niet verklaren.
We're travelling back from Southampton to Alderney in the Trailander. I had noticed Ray looking out through the windscreen with his binoculars, which is quite unusual.
I saw Ray turn around and talk to someone behind him while we were flying. Now, it wasn't worrying from the standpoint of flying, but it was unusual. And he was gesturing to something down below.
On nearing the object, a second identical shape appeared beyond the first. Both objects were of a flattened disc shape with a dark area to the right. They were brilliant yellow with light emanating from within, and I estimated them to be up to possibly a mile across.
I pointed it out to John. He had to lean across me to be able to see it.
It was like that.
This was a big object in the sky, very, very big object. And I didn't want to be too close to it. So it was at that time anyway where we had to descend to land. And with both objects still visible and to a lot of the passengers in the back of the aircraft, we descended through the 2,000-foot haze layer and lost sight of it.
So Ray, why didn't you bring this to the attention of your passengers? I mean, normally when a pilot sees something of interest, he says, if you look out to your left, you'll see...
Yeah, New York.
Right, you know what I mean?
It was a little bit far away from me. Well, it was, I didn't want to alarm anybody at that point. There again, as we got closer to these objects, there was no hiding it. They were just there.